The 2021 season for the defensive interior of the Minnesota Vikings defensive line, I don't know what to think about it. There were some flashes, some bright spots, also some injury concerns and moments where you kind of, were curious about how good was it actually? Because to start off the season with everybody healthy, our run defense still left a lot to be desired. From a pass rushing perspective, I thought it actually went pretty well. They each contributed with some sacks, with some tackles for loss. But the main thing that concerns me with the players we had, and maybe it was a scheme thing, was their play against the run, which I thought left a lot to be desired by the end of the year. What are your thoughts on the defensive interior?
Yeah, I agree. I think, when we did have Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson, I did think it went up quite a bit. Our run defense seemed to be better, but we only have Michael Pierce for, we'll see in a little bit here, but only for 8 games. I mean, he missed a lot of the games. So, and everyone that stepped in for him, it did not work out, especially for the run game. Like you said, the pass game was definitely better. But that run game killed us, man. That might be our Achilles heel from the season on defense. And that's saying a lot since we had a lot of inexperience at cornerback. But overall, it'll be interesting because I thought when it was like the Danielle Hunter thing, I thought when Michael Pierce did play, he did pretty dang well, I thought, for a big tackle like that. And without him, I mean, he's the guy that we needed for the run game. So when you are missing him, it's kind of hard. They're literally huge shoes to fill. And I think that was a big problem. And that's the thing too, is like last year he didn't play. Obviously that was his own decision. So that's all good. But for him to have his first season and it being like that big of an injury thing kind of was disappointing, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It sucks that he just can't, a big name guy that we signed and he can't just can't seem to stay healthy. And that's the frustrating part with him. I don't have much else to say about him because we'll talk about it when we get into the grades here, which let's look into the season stats.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to thank everybody for watching the GG Sport podcast of Minnesota Vikings, where we endure heartbreak but always bleed purple. Please subscribe and hit that bell to get notifications on our videos. All right, now let's jump into it.
All right, sounds good. So here you can see the stats for nose tackle Michael Pierce. Only played 8 games due to injuries, 20 tackles, 3 sacks, which is pretty good for 8 games. 4 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, and a 78.5 PFF grade. Actually pretty solid.
Really good, actually.
Again, the injury thing is a thing that needs to be talked about with him. Just couldn't seem to stay on the field. As you talked about in 2020, opted out due to COVID concerns. Again, his own choice. Good for him. If that's what he felt the need to do with the asthma and stuff, I 100% understand it. But this year he came back. We were very excited about it. The run defense needed to be much better than it was in 2020. And I don't know. I thought even when he played, the run defense was still pretty poor. Again, could have been a scheming thing because we all know how Zimmer was his last year and his run defense had struggled over the last few years. I don't know. Again, the jury's still out on Michael Pierce for me. You're paying him a lot of money to not play a ton of games, in my own personal opinion, looking at those stats.
Yeah, I mean, you make a fair point. I feel like I think when he did play, he was definitely an above average tackle to me. And just like the Danielle Hunter thing. I mean, if you're paying someone a lot, especially if we pay Danielle Hunter and someone who's already dealing with injuries now, you need to be on the field. And if you're not on the field, you're not worth the money. But at the same time, I do think, these are positions that are not easy to fill and find good players or above average players in them. So that's the part that's kind of hard for me. I just don't know how easy it'd be to find. If we switch to a 3-4, that could change things up, even though you kind of want a big guy still in the middle of that.
Tomlinson. I would go with Dalvin Tomlinson over.
But I would probably have to say Dalvin Tomlinson, I'd have to go with him. Out of those two, even though I think Michael Pierce probably has a higher PFF, I also think Michael Pierce has like one of the highest grades on Madden, or
he did
grades on Madden.
Top nose tackle, yeah.
But Dalvin Tomlinson, I think he's a stud. I think he can still even get better. And He played 16 games, and we're gonna go more into him. I would choose him over Michael Pierce. I would say just the injury thing, but I still like Michael Pierce, man. I do. I think he's just a big dude that can just eat up space and stuff. And I really like it. It just gives me that Linval Joseph vibes, and I've always loved Linval Joseph. But
and the injury was a torn tricep that he had this year. So because I think they just called it an elbow injury when he was out, but torn tricep, that's hard to play through. Getting into grades with the contract and the injuries, I'm giving him a C+. I just, even like I said, even when he played, the run defense still wasn't that good. For a guy that size, I mean, the sacks are nice to see, 3 of them from a guy in that position, only playing 8 games. But I just thought, with the money you're paying him, C+. C+ for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a defensive line guru. I might be called out on this. I might be wrong, but I'm giving him a C+ if you ask me.
Well, know what? I am a defensive line guru. I'm pretty much just a guru all around for any of these. No, I'm just kidding. Don't take my opinion for anything. I'm not a professional at all. I might think I am sometimes, but it's all bullshit most of the time.
We're just a couple guys that talk on the internet.
Yeah. That being said, I'll give him a B. I think when he was on the field, I think he played at a B level. Obviously he got injured, so maybe you could bring that down a little bit, but yeah. You know what? I'll go B-. I'll go B-. You have to be, I mean, only half the games. We expected big things from you. Our defensive line was supposed to be one of the best positions this year. And honestly, we thought we could say our defensive line was probably going into this season. We probably thought we might have arguably the best defensive line in all of the NFL. And I would actually double down on that because that was even before we got Sheldon Richardson. We got Sheldon Richardson and we're like now it's for sure. Like now we're just stacked. And then we even got Everson Griffin back and we're just so stacked. And I think overall our defensive line was such a disappointment. And to have that kind of talent, there's so many injuries, but to have that kind of talent and have the running game to be an Achilles heel was a big disappointment. So
for sure. So that's that on Michael Pierce. Moving on to the other nose tackle / 3 technique, Dalvin Tomlinson. As you said, played 16 games, I believe this year. Might have missed 1. 39 tackles, 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, PFF grade of 74.9. I thought he played very solid as well. Again, he's still part of that run game that struggled at times. Since he's a little bit cheaper, I'd probably prefer to keep him over Michael Pierce if you had to make a decision. As you talked about with that potential move to a 3-4, you probably don't need 2 high-paid big middle guys in the defensive line. I like the way Dalvin Tomlinson, I mean, the health thing is huge too, but I like the way he played. I think you're getting a better value with him than you are with a Michael Pierce, especially if he can't keep the injuries in line.
Yeah, I agree. I think he has more upside in the long term too. He's still a really young guy, and I would probably say the only concern, I think, he kind of lined up more in that 3 technique spot, and I wish his sacks could have probably went up higher than they did. 7 quarterback hits, but I think other than that, I think he had a pretty solid season. Like you said, it was still part of the run game, but I liked him. I think for sure we'll have him on our team next year.
I think so. Again, jumping into grades, again, not a defensive line guru, but I'm when I look at Dalvin Tomlinson in the season, I give it a B. I think he was solid. Again, I don't think he wasn't elite by any means, but I think he had a solid season for what you're paying him for. So I'll give him a B.
I will give him a B as well. Pretty much exactly what you said. I agree. It wasn't spectacular. I would probably still say I was hoping for a little bit better out of him coming into this season, but that's just our entire offense or defensive line. But I think he's still going to be really good, and I think next year could. Has he been to a Pro Bowl? He might have. Has he been a Pro Bowl?
I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I guess
I'll have to look into that, but I think he has potential to do that. So
yeah. Cool.
All
so
right,
again, I like him. I think if you're going to pick one of the 2 middle guys to go with, I think he's the guy you go with.
Yeah.
Sheldon Richardson. Sheldon Richardson played 7 games or 7 starts after all the injuries kind of took hold. 39 tackles, 4 sacks, 13 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, and a 62.1 PFF grade. At halfway through the season, when the defensive end group hit their, injuries and whatnot. He stepped in at the defensive end spot for a little bit. And I thought he played pretty decent there, because before then you didn't hear his name a lot. I don't really think he got on the field much.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing in the beginning of the season for him, I felt like.
Yeah.
And then he kind of came on towards the end a little bit, but I mean, we had those, against the Bears and other teams. Like there was a couple of games where our defensive line did pretty good actually, but
I was hyped when I saw we were bringing him back, but when you just saw the no impact, then it was just kind of okay. Then at the end of the year, yeah, he came in defensive end, made a few splashes, but
which he played fantastic for us the last time he was on our team.
Right, for sure. So plugging this one into a grade, I feel so negative, but I'm giving him a C. I'm giving him a C+ as well. Like he had his moments. 4 sacks is okay for a guy who only had 7 starts, switched positions halfway through the season.
Right.
But when we brought him in, we were expecting him to be a force, a rotational guy who was actually going to play a lot, make a splash, and he just didn't do it. So C+, I feel like it's a very fair grade.
Yeah, I think he turned it up a little bit towards the end, but I've got to get him a C. It wasn't what we wanted out of him. He didn't show himself to be like the type of talent that he's supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. So I feel like he had a C grade. I would probably put it lower if it wasn't for his end of the year to kind of ramp it up a little bit, but
yeah. I don't foresee him back next season personally.
Yeah, man, it's so weird because a lot of these are like our whole defensive line. I honestly have no idea what it could look like next year.
No.
Like it could be
going
just
into a change of scheme too. Like it'll be an interesting offseason.
Right. It's going to be. I think our defense could look totally different. Yeah. I don't know.
Right. It'd be weird. One guy that I do think will stick around, Armon Watts, backup nose tackle, had 9 starts, 46 tackles, 5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, and a 62 PFF grade. Again, rotational guy, but I thought when he got in there, he played very well. Again, not super splashy, but 5 sacks from a backup nose tackle, defensive end or defensive interior guy. I liked it. I thought he had a good season.
Yeah, I think if we talk about like expectation wise, I think he stepped in really well. And, I don't know if he'll ever be that Pro Bowl or starting defensive tackle there, but I think he's going to be a high-end rotational for the long term. And I think it probably will be us because I think it's going to be one of those situations where his price tag is most valuable on our team than what anyone else would see him as. But
yeah, if we're popping a grade on him, I will give him a B. I'm between a B and a B+. I'll go B+. Again, expectation. He had more sacks than a couple of the other guys who we pay a lot more money to.
He's healthy.
Healthy. Yeah. He's a rotational guy. So a B+ for a rotational guy with those numbers. Again, I don't know if he'll ever be a true blue starter, but as a rotational nose tackle, I'm happy he's here. If next year, if he backs up Dalvin Tomlinson, Michael Pierce, whoever you decide to go with, I'm happy with it. I think he's a good rotational piece. So I'll give him a B+.
I would, based on expectation, I think I would go B+, but I'm still going to base this just on straight play for the position, and I'm going to go with B- on that.
Okay.
I mean, he did really fantastic. He stepped in. I mean, it wasn't like he stepped in as a Pro Bowler or anything like that, but it was pretty impressive. I mean, 5 sacks is a lot from a rotational defensive tackle who started 9 games.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see 5 sacks from a lot of tackles for an entire season in this league for full-time starters. So
So again, solid season for him. I thought he played pretty well given what he is. So
yeah.
Overall, defensive line, I thought, like you said, it was kind of a letdown. Injuries played a part, but yeah, I don't know. And again, it's all what happens next year is all predicated on the scheme. If we decide to switch to a 3-4, you're going to see a lot of differences in who's on the team, where they're playing. So it'll be an interesting offseason. And it all starts once everything gets finalized here and we move some contracts, trade some players. I don't know, man. It's hard to look forward to it's hard to look into next year with these guys not knowing what they're going to look like. Even.
It's almost like you can't, like our entire defense is pretty much other than a couple players, who knows what it's going to look like. Cornerback, linebackers. We know Anthony Barr's probably not going to be here. Right. Obviously, we're going to we'll probably actually do that position group next with the linebackers. But no, it's crazy. And I think if we switch to a 3-4, that's going to feel so weird. Like I've never spent a lot of time watching 3-4 defenses.
No.
And just because we've never been one, it seems so weird. Like my whole perspective of defense has always just been 4-3.
Right.
It's just crazy.
Yeah,
but hey, I'm interested in trying new things, and it'd be
Yeah.
kind of cool. That's one thing about Anthony Barr, though. Man, it'd be interesting to see him on a 4-3.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep, for sure. But who knows? That's what the offseason's for. It'll be exciting, at the very least, to see what happens with all these guys and where they go and if they're here or not or whatever. So I'm not sure. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. It really help us out a lot. Hit that thumbs up. Don't thumbs down. Liking is good. Comment your thoughts on the defensive interior in the comment section. Let us know how you thought they all played. Who you think is going to be back next year. Who you would take over Watts and Pierce. Let us know those. Or not Watts. Well, Watts, Pierce, between Pierce and Tomlinson. There we go. I can talk. Let us know those down in the comments. If you want to check out some other videos we did, they'll be right up here for you. And most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the channel to see all the exciting content in the off season. And we will see you guys in the next video.
SKOL Vikes.